Our next speaker is Adrian Rowe, the CEO of Ideas, and Adrian is going to talk a little bit about the live streaming challenges and how a product like Norsk fits into how things are going to work in the future. With that, Adrian, welcome. Take it away.
Thank you ever so much, Eric, and thank you too to Streaming Media. This is, I think, my 10th or 12th time here, so this is a real home away from home, and there's some amazing stuff goes on in these rooms. I'd really like to thank Renard as well for that session just there. I made a note to myself, make sure you make some polite comments about previous speaker, to appear to be a nice human being. But what he said, I think there was some insights that really resonate with where we are and where we feel that the market needs to go. And those comments around platform versus environment, and the job of the people in this room is to optimize streaming for the customers we serve. I think that is exactly the job of the people in this room, and I'm super excited to see that echoed by such a prestigious person. Down to me and us. As Eric said, I'm Dr. Adrian Rowe. I'm the Chief Exec of Ideas, the company behind Norsk, and Norsk is what we're launching here today at the show. What do? We build large-scale live streaming systems. As you all know, there's a lot of live streaming goes on. We commissioned Rethink to go and look at exactly how big that might be. And current estimates are we're around 160, 170 million live streaming events will happen this year. Ideas Technology is responsible for a few 100,000 of those. So for people like DAZN and NASDAQ Notified, etc. And despite the phenomenal growth we've seen in streaming, especially over the pandemic, that growth is continuing. It's not kind of skyrocketing, but it went growing quite nicely, kind of doubling, growing quite nicely again. We're back into a growing quite nicely phase. And with that, customer experiences, in order to be able to deliver a live streaming event, customer experiences are going up and up and up. What used to be accepted as this is, where we ought to be, now starts to be a little bit more, the bar is quite rightly being raised the whole time. And this is a joke, by the way, in case people, go Bruins, though. People are, people don't just want a stream of video. They want a community experience. They want to be able to interact with their peers. They want to be able to have talking points. Personal best, fear factor 15, well done. That's exactly what we're after. But I'm going to look into sort of some of the streaming pitfalls. And when you create solutions in this space, and when our customers use solutions in the space, how do things go wrong and what can we do about it? I think Renard hit the nail on the head with this one. No pun intended, but I'll take it. There is a lot about the streaming ecosystem that says, here's what a streaming event looks like. You come in, you get a stream in of some sort, we'll then build a bunch of ladders, we'll maybe do some on-demand assets off the back of that, and we'll publish it out to a whole bunch of CDNs, job done. And if you go and look at the market space, that's by and large what's there. And then, there are sort of line of business versions of that, the Zooms and so on of this world. But I think there's a kind of circular, a circular problem with that. Because actually then what happens is when people come into the market and say, I have this opportunity to stream to my community, to my business, they assume that their business looks like the tools. They assume that they're a nail, because what they see out there is a lot of hammers. And if hammers is what everyone's about, surely I'm a nail as well. And let's look at one of our customers, NASDAQ. So NASDAQ is, the artist formerly known as NASDAQ, because in the time we've worked with them for about a dozen years, there were Thomson Reuters, then NASDAQ, then West, then Intrado, then Notified. Same people, great, passionate crowd who do a bunch of financial fair disclosure events. And it was interesting, one of the phrases of Renard's again, financial fair disclosure is the obligation to make sure I'm a floated company, I'm going to do something that might impact my share price. I need to make sure that everybody in the world can have access to that information at essentially the same time. That's kind of being reinvented in the last few years as this experience in unison. Financial fair disclosure is legislated, it's mandated experience in unison. And what NASDAQ were doing as a business is they said, well, we do X, tens or hundreds of thousands of these events every year. We get a stream from the source. We publish it to all sorts of different formats. We create some on-demand assets. That's great. There are millions of products that do that. That's the business we're in. But that's not the business they're in. They're in the business of financial fair disclosure. They are in the business of helping their customers meet their fiduciary responsibilities. They're in the business of enabling controlled message management out to the market, the wider public, and to solicit feedback about that and to create a community. They probably wouldn't have used those words 10 years ago, but that is exactly it. It's like I've got a sporting Go Bruins on the Fear Factor punch. They're in the business of helping their customers meet those needs. That's what they do. The hammer is a ladder in, stream in, ladder out tool. And those two things do not align. So what does the customer actually want? They want to meet those fiduciary responsibilities. They want to manage that expectations. And actually, the most important of all, they want to make sure that the CEO looks marvelous. There's also a big difference between doing this once or twice or doing this 100,000 times a year like NASDAQ do. I've been saying some slightly mean things, potentially. I'm not trying to say that the tools that are out there are not great tools. They're fantastic tools. The people in this room build amazing stuff. We're all passionate about what we do. If you look at streaming media's journey, coming into the pandemic, I think it was 6 weeks to go before this conference in 2019, 2020, whichever. Suddenly this conference didn't exist. And they went, and over the course of 6 weeks, they turned themselves from a physical, in-presence only company to one that then has a successful business based around Zoom that does actually multiple conferences a year. And even beyond the pandemic, that's still ongoing. It's still a value add. It still creates stuff. So I'm not saying that tools don't create stuff. What I am saying is tools can create expectations that are not necessarily what our customers should be demanding. So actually, in order to be able to deliver their business, if you look at doing this at scale, if you're doing this 100,000 times a year, what goes wrong? And as I suspect everybody in the room knows, it goes wrong because you can't get the damn source out of the building. You've got a live event, you can't get the damn source. So actually what we do for them is we take the source out using one stream over one network, and we take out a similar source over a different stream over a different network, and we make a phone call back to the event. We just make a damn, good old-fashioned PSTN phone call, so that if you lose the internet connection entirely in that building, what's important beyond how sparkly the CEO looks is what they're saying. It's the slides, it's the message, and that's the business that NASDAQ are in. And in order to be able to do that business 100,000 times a year, you have to make sure that when stuff goes wrong, nobody notices, or to the extent that they can not notice. So suddenly, that's really the business they're in. And what did they implement initially was a sort of, stream in, ladder out. But actually, the reality of their business was much more nuanced than that. The problem with that, though, is in order to be able to build a system that does, this source in, that source in, we'll make a phone call, we'll cut to a video, we'll do all sorts of stuff, and we'll have automated QA and monitoring and so on and so forth, is by definition, that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist in the market. There isn't the perfect solution for NASDAQ in the market. And so it's very easy to go down the roll your own trap. I say, oh, that's great, I'm going to build one of these solutions that deliver these requirements that I have. But congratulations, you used to be a sports broadcaster, you used to be a stock exchange, you used to be whatever else it might be. Now you're a media technology company. And that's not what you do for your customers. what you do for your customers is experience in unison. It's creating communities, it's creating interest, it's creating discussion, it's creating stickiness. That's what you do. The cost of doing that is assembling this car from the component parts. And the problem is, none of your customers care. They care about the fantastic sports experience you bring to them. They care that you give them an opportunity to speak with their friends about how great the game was, or how great the Super Bowl halftime was. That's what they care about. None of the customers care whether you use Dash or HLS or AV1 or HEVC. Everyone in this room cares. I care deeply about that, but your customers don't. And I think one of the things that the streaming industry suffers from is exactly this. You've got Popeye with his spinach, which is going to make him strong. And that's what the customers want. What we often talk about is the new improved helical offset lithography printing on the labels. And there's another big cost that comes with that kind of whole roll your own phenomenon. And that is, for every line, what matters is this business process I'm delivering to my customers, this experience that I'm enabling. For once I go down that road, for every line of experience code, for every line of business code, for every line of differentiated code, I probably have literally hundreds or maybe even thousands of lines of cost of business code. How do I do MV12? How do I do this? How do I do the other? All sorts of technology stuff, which is a necessary cost of business, but it doesn't differentiate me one iota. When people like BAMTech changed the way people thought about sports broadcasting, it wasn't because they suddenly used some new codec. It's because they managed to deliver a new experience, a new excitement to the customers. Okay, so now about us. What if I told you? I have 3 minutes. There's a better way. That you can balance up that code, the cost between delivering value to your customers and the necessary cost of being in the game. And so that's what we're launching today, this very day. And so Norsk is a low-code, high-power, no-compromises SDK for delivering large, live, scalable, highly available solutions. And I'm going to talk very, very briefly about one of the capabilities of Norsk. It's over there. What I want out of this conference is for you to have permission to believe that some of what I'm saying is true. And I want to earn that, so I'd like you all to come along and experience it for yourself and try it, because it's dead easy to try. My colleague Steve Strong, who's around here somewhere, will be showing you some of this if you go to the innovation track this afternoon. But what you have in that understandably noisy slide there is a conference application in which we have 4 people connected. We have our Norsk. We have what appears to be BBC One connected as well, some camera, and then some other source. We have a variety of sources. They could come in over a variety of different means. And we are assembling that together. And if sources come, we'll add them. And if sources disappear, they'll disappear. That comes in at about 110 lines of code. Now, you might go, 110, that's quite a lot of code. Of that 110 lines of code, something like 93 lines of that code are business logic. It's about when this new person arrives, should I let them through? Are they authenticated? If I do, where do they go in the mosaic? What we're doing there is the cost behind it, of the technology, the undifferentiated stuff, is 10 lines of that code. And so we're taking that ratio, where it used to be hundreds of lines of code for every line of business, and turning it on its head. And we think that's exactly where the market needs to go. Let's concentrate on value to customers, the experience down at the end of the road. And I'm going to end with a little anecdote. When we started to talk to existing customers about this at IBC last year, I was talking to one particular customer that we've been working with again for around a decade. And we started to tell them about Norsk. And they got really excited. And they said, okay, that's really cool, it does this. Does that mean we could do, that you could do this for us? And I said, well, yes, it does. And I said, does it mean that you could do the other for us? We said, yes, it does. And then about 15 minutes into the conversation, he said, oh, I think that means that we can do this. And that, for me, is exactly what Norsk is about. It's taking that tyranny away of... That's me done. Taking that tyranny away from the cost of being able to deliver to your customers being gated behind hundreds of thousands or probably millions of lines of complex technology, to being able to say, actually, I can concentrate on this. What can we do with this? How can we build compelling user experiences? Come on by and find out. Thank you very much.